Good morning, everybody. Glad to have everybody back here today. Hope everybody's had a good week. Spent a week out of town, so came back and discovered my yard was kind of in as good or worse shape than it was when I started. It just doesn't seem to be making a whole lot of headway, but it doesn't look terrible. So when I say this is Yard Woes update number two, it's still Yard Woes. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. Now, I don't know whether I said the last time that my upbringing is that my dad went by the theory that if it's green, it's grass. So when we had a yard, we lived in, my dad was a preacher, lived in parsonages. So we had a yard, and usually it was a fair sized yard. And so he had an old beater of a lawnmower, and I would be out there, running that lawnmower back and forth. And it was usually pretty tough. And I didn't do it any more times than I absolutely had to because who wanted to? And a good bit of the time when I was growing up, it was one of those real um, lawnmowers, the ones that spin. And they were just awful. And dad would come home from work and he'd look out there at where I just spent an hour mowing the yard and he'd go, "You missed a couple spots." And he'd send me back outside. So I grew up with a great love of yard work. I really enjoyed doing it. It just made my weekend whenever I could spend the afternoon doing yard work. So here I am 40 years later, 50 years later, and doing yard work, but enjoying it a little bit more sometimes. So anyway, as I look at that, just a quick update. The Japanese boxwoods I have, they're still struggling. I did all the fungus stuff, anti-fungus stuff. I did all the fertilizer and everything, probably too much, but they're still green, and there's still some new green coming out. So I have hopes that they're going to turn out okay. But we're going to see. Now, the other transplanted plants in the front, which is some type of rose, it's not a traditional rose in my mind of what a rose looks like, but it's a rose. But they transplanted at the wrong time because that's when I do things the most. I do them at the wrong times because that seems to be more of a challenge, and I look forward to that. So anyway, as I'm sitting here with the transplants in the front, I think that they're going to be fine next year. They're struggling this year. They don't look very good. They're kind of bedraggled at the end of the day. They're leaning over. You water them and they come up better, but for the most part, they don't look very good. So I'm thinking though that they're still alive, and that give them a good winter of rest, and they're going to come back and they're going to surprise me in the spring. So I'm looking forward to that. I have great hopes for that anyway. Now, the grass seed that I put out two batches of grass seed. Now, that means that I bought two bags of grass seed. And, I bought the stuff that has the mulch and everything else that you throw it out there and, you can't mess it up. I mean, you just cannot mess it up. Well, I'm not sure that's a true statement because as I look at what's coming up and what's not coming up, there's some coming up, but it doesn't look nearly like it does on the package and the wrapper that you have on there. Frustrating. We'd really like to have that lawn looking just like a carpet, but that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Now, the other thing that we had here in the last couple days, when we got back from our little bit of a vacation, was the cottonwoods are I don't know if bloom is the right wood, but there are some cottonwood trees somewhere in the neighborhood because the wind pattern blows it all into my yard. And and we're not talking just a little bit. We're talking enough that we have literally 2 or 3 inch drifts against the sidewalk, on the curb. And the lawn itself, I went out this morning, cut the lawn. So it's a nice flat edge on the lawn. And then the cottonwood started blowing. It looks like it snowed. It's unbelievable how much cottonwood uh, dust, whatever those cotton fluffs are, whatever the right word, seeds. I'm sure those are the cottonwood seeds, but they're there and they're having just a good time, working its way along. Now we also, of course, as I did the lawn this morning and I cut the lawn, I looked and I said, wow, all that Bermuda that I worked so hard to get rid of, and so it'd be gone. Well, it's back. And it's just sitting there looking like, oh, it's getting warm. I'm ready to really pop. So, that's the type of I don't think I'll ever be over Bermuda. I think that that's something that I'll be fighting every year. Unfortunately, the neighborhood I live in doesn't want to have Bermuda year round because it stays brown for so long. Otherwise, I would say let it take over. Much less care than what I'm doing now. So, anyway, it is what it is, and it's just going to do it. Anyhow, I'm still having a great time in the yard, working at it, spending a little bit of time, a little bit of exercise. Yeah, I can't seem to kill anything bad enough for it to go away, but it's not good enough that it's really improving much. So anyway, stay tuned. I'll keep everybody informed. The yard woes will continue, but for right now, everybody have a good week, have a good time, stay tuned. Go down to the bottom of this thing, subscribe, follow, whatever it is that they ask you to do. Really would like to see more people watching these things. And remember, I'm just a guy talking. I don't know anything. I am not an expert on anything that I just talked about. Don't take my word for anything, but have a good day. Take my word for that. Have the best day you know how to have.